radio. The dishes won't wash themselves, but on the other hand, sleigh radio won't listen to itself either.
Let's go. that you know me, but if you speak it, you're blessed. So I continue to try. I'ma try to my death, try to reach as many people I can until my final last breath and be in peace with the rest. Live life with no regrets and try to keep to the truth. I barely see my family cause I live in the booth, sipping on juice with the gin makes it proof. Forensic, a lot of people claiming they something that ain't. Hip-hop is all I see. In this hip-hop, give the people what they really want. Real talk, real hip-hop, just stop bullshit and listen to yourself when you spit. You can beat it, it's deep. This hip-hop is missing, yo, listen. Yeah, let's give them hip-hop's passion stashed inside of yourself, grasping the breath, the adrenaline soon as you start rapping. It's the mic in your hand, it's the stage that you rock. It's the lives that you change, it's not the people you touch. It's hip-hop, it's not what's hot. It's the feeling inside, knowing you got one shot to make it. You better take it, I'm taking it now, homie. Time only sticking around for a second.
knew it would crush eventually, that's why I save it often.
Fuck you. Bullshit. You idiot! You son of a bitch!
What the hell were you thinking?
You want to fuck with me?
Absolutely. This time you can count on me.
Like you're gonna die. Because you're gonna. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're gonna die. Maybe not today or even next year, but before you know it, you'll be saying, is this all there was? What was all the fuss? Why did I bother?
My goodness, it's wagon wheels. Keep coming into La Rochelle. That chocolate. Nice.
David, who are you actually? If you would have to introduce yourself in a few sentences, how would you do that?
Well, first of all, welcome to this crystal cave. I'm sure this is a first for you as it's a first for me.
It is.
And how would I describe myself? Well, years and years ago, I was what is called a mainstream journalist. And there were constraints, obviously, in what you could write, what you could say, the areas that you could go into. And there were things called editors saying, that can get in, that can get on there, that can't. I'm still a journalist, but I have no constraints. I don't have anyone telling me where I can go and where I can't go, what I can investigate and what I can't investigate. And thus, I am doing the job that if the mainstream media did the same without constraints, we would live in a very different world, because we would know things about what is happening politically in terms of finance and endless other things that we don't currently know. And it's kind of interesting and so appropriate that we're talking at this time when emails leaked by WikiLeaks have confirmed the themes of so much that I've been writing about over the years, not least the Clinton family that I've been exposing since the mid-1990s, and how what we call democracy is actually a farce.
But
It's
when
a
we talk
hoax.
about your predictions, you've made many predictions or prophecies, if you will, over the years. What has become true specifically?
Well, first of all, very topically, I said in the 1990s that the plan was for a Third World War, and this would pitch the West against China and Russia. At the time I said that, there was no evidence whatsoever that that was going to be the case. In fact, the evidence was the opposite of that. Things were quite calm. Now, when you look around you, if you do it with an open mind, you can see that pieces are blatantly being put into place to trigger such a conflict. You've got this massive build-up of NATO more and more.
So we're already in the middle of
not least in relation to Estonia. And you've got this blatant demonization of Russia. You know, I've burnt the toast, it's the Russians. I'm late for school, it's the Russians. And, you know, when you see what has come out just through the Clinton emails and the emails of the Democratic Party, and you see, for instance, as I've been saying for so long, that ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups are actually funded and put into place to create an enemy by the West, not least Britain and America. And now we're having it confirmed through these emails that Hillary Clinton knew that Saudi Arabia and Qatar were...
Well, there are many people who disagree with your conclusions of these emails.
And? What are your conclusions then?
Well,
When she's saying that she knew that Qatar and Saudi Arabia were funding ISIS and terrorist groups, while she was taking multi-millions from the same Qatar and Saudi Arabia for her Clinton
but
Foundation.
do you draw a straightforward conclusion that the ISIS and whatever these fundamentalists are actually, I don't know, established or actually run by the Americans?
They are run by the Americans, and they're created by the Americans. And because of compartmentalization, only having people know what they need to know to make their contribution, the vast majority of people, the jihadists, they will not have a clue about that. You know, there was a television investigative reporter in France recently who went undercover with a terrorist group in Europe. When he came out and spoke on the television channel, he said what he was dealing with was not Islamic fundamentalists, but basically young people who were completely lost, completely manipulated, and he called them fast food jihadists who had no clue or connection to Islam in the sense of we're fighting for for God. You know, the whole way it's been presented in this black and white way has created these apparent sides, when actually the difference between the two is very much fuzzier. And then you've got Zbigniew Brzezinski, Jimmy Carter's former national security advisor, who spoke to a French news magazine some years ago now, and admitted openly that during his tenure as national security advisor, they trained, armed, and funded the groups in Afghanistan that became known as the Mujahideen, because he said he wanted them to attack the Soviet satellite regime in Kabul, to entice Russia to invade Afghanistan, to protect that Kabul government, and give them, in his words, their Vietnam. That is precisely what happened, and 1 million Afghans died as a result. What happened to the Mujahideen? They morphed into the Taliban, they morphed into Al-Qaeda, they morphed into ISIS. You put the dots together, and there's another sequence that people need to realize. In the year 2000, there was a document published by an organization in America known in the mainstream media as the neoconservatives, that were behind the Bush administration. And in September 2000, this organization, the Project of the New American Century, set out a plan of regime change in country after country in the Middle East, Libya, Syria, Iraq, etc. And they said in that document that this process of transformation, of regime change, would only be possible and only be done in any reasonable speed with another Pearl Harbor to focus the minds of the American people to say, yes, we've got to do this. And what happened a few months after that document was published, those same people came to power with George Bush in January 2001. And 9 months later, 1 year to the month since that document was published, we had what Bush called in America the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century, 9/11. As a result of that, that list of countries has been systematically picked off and is still happening in Syria.
On the topic of your predictions, back in the 90s, you predicted that the world will come to an end by 1997 by tidal waves and earthquakes and whatever.
Look, mate, hold on a second. Right. Now,
20 years later.
There's a massive backstory to that, which of course you won't be interested in. If you take what I've been writing in my books since the 1990s and you look at what's happening in the world now, it's extraordinary how the two are the same. And why do thousands of people come to see my events around the world? From all walks of life, from all colours, all backgrounds, all creeds, all income brackets. Because they're crazy, because they're stupid? No, because they have an open mind that says, this makes sense to me, or at least I'm going to see if the information makes sense. And it does. And that's why so many people are now interested in my work. Now you can say, oh, let's go back 26 years when I was having a massive mind experience that changed my life, and let's stay there. Let's put that there. Or we can be adult and we can be mature and we can say, look, since this guy started writing books, look at what he's written and look at what has happened. Well, and that's what people are doing.
Your opponents say that you predict so many things. You talk about a vast array of stuff that you're bound to hit a nail sometimes.
Right across what I've been writing about is now being confirmed. One of the things I've been writing about, if you want to go deeper into this, since what must be best part of 15 years, is that we live in the equivalent of a cosmic video game, a virtual reality universe. If you follow scientific thought and you look at some real mainstream people who've come out recently, in the last few years, who are saying the same. They're saying that that actually is the only thing that makes sense of.
Well, they're speculating.
Well, they're not.
That's a improvement.
Well,
to my understanding.
of course. What do you call proof? You have to look at the evidence and then conclude: do I think the evidence is substantial enough for me to start to encompass this? When you've got mathematicians and physicists like Max Texmark at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology coming out and pointing out that the physics of our reality is the same as the physics of a video game. When you have other mainstream scientists coming out and saying the same, you know, this mad guy was saying this ages and ages ago. But this is not about, you know, I said this and so look how great I am. This is actually just balancing out this response to me by the mainstream, which is this guy's crazy, therefore we're going to come from that perspective that he's crazy in the way we report it.
To take the picture a bit wider, if I understand your theories correctly, your view of things is that a large part of the global elite is actually shape-shifting reptiles who want to establish the new world order.
Well, that's an incredibly simplistic way of putting it, but in the time.
But if you want to boil it down,
you can't boil down something that's simplistic. You have to expand upon it, right? Let me put this to you. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in this universe. Visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, is a tiny fraction of the 0.005%. Humans are basically...
Our perceptions are very, very limited.
Right, okay.
I have a hard time agreeing that Barack Obama or the royal family are reptiles.
Okay, what research have you done?
Well,
I'll tell you. No, mate. Answer the question. How much research have you done on it? I've done 26 years of research in 60 countries. What have you done? Zero. So no wonder you have a hard time getting your head around it. Why? How would you get your head around something you haven't even researched? It's ridiculous. Well, but classic mainstream. The other thing is that according to mainstream science and their projection of the size of the universe, planet Earth is the equivalent, by comparison, of 1/1000th of a pinhead. So, you know, let's put it at very least here, right? There is a vast, extraordinary amount more to know than we know. Thus, people keep their minds open. They actually look at the evidence and read the books.
What is the evidence? Can you explain briefly? How did you come to the deduction that many dignitaries or prominent people are actually alien reptiles or half-breeds reptiles?
When you are hybrids, actually, when you are you are researching something and you have an open mind, when you travel to the best part of 60 countries over the last 26 years, you meet a lot of people in many different walks of life. And when you constantly keep coming across people in different countries who are telling you of their experience of seeing people in apparently a human form shift into a reptilian, not always reptilian, but non-human form, and then back again. When you then talk to shaman and carriers of ancient knowledge around the world in the native peoples, and they tell you about their legends that say exactly the same. When you talk to insiders who will talk to people like me, because they won't be dismissed and called idiots, they'll be listened to, who actually give you the same story. When you talk to the very close friends of people like Princess Diana for 9 years, a lady called Christine Fitzgerald, who, by the way, told me about what Jimmy Savile was doing, this BBC paedophile, and how close he was to the British royal family. She told me also about this whole relationship of reptilian hybrid bloodlines to the British royal family.
But have you actually personally seen one?
No, and I don't have to. You're a journalist, right? Do you have to have experienced everything you write about? No. You talk to people, you look at the common themes, you look at how they're saying the same thing, even though they're from different countries and different backgrounds, and then you put the evidence before people, not connected, and you say, make of it what you will. That's it. And people will look at it and they'll say, yeah, it makes sense to me. They'll look at it and they'll say, nah, it doesn't make sense to me. And either way, from my point of view, is fine. Because all I'm doing is putting information out there, and then people make of it what they will.
By the time this interview will be aired, the US will have a new president, either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Are they also alien?
Trump, I don't know about, but I mean, look at the choice there. Look at the choice there.
Three bad choices.
Just take a deep breath, and look at a system that with 320 million people that can throw up a choice for president with massive impacts on the world.
We're not happy about our leaders either, but that doesn't mean that they're aliens.
That actually throws up a choice between a catastrophe and a disaster. Now, what I don't know about Trump, but Hillary Clinton is someone who's come up again and again, going right back into the 1990s. And that's why her connection to this web, to this network, that's why someone, as we speak, we don't know how it's going to turn out yet, but as we speak, someone who is so blatantly corrupt and to an extraordinary level can still be on the verge of becoming president of the United States is extraordinary.
Just to be clear, you're not talking allegorically.
No, I'm not talking allegorically.
It's not a metaphor.
No.
You literally mean
this is what you get from some people. Oh, he's using it symbolically. I'm not using it literally. And let me ask you this question. As I said earlier, we can see a tiny, tiny fraction of frequency, a slither of frequency we can actually see. Look at the different forms within the tiny sliver of frequency that we can see. Look at the animal kingdom. Look at the incredible number of forms. Do we really believe that out there in the great forever, that almost the entirety of which we cannot see, that forms of what we would call life only take a human form? What? I mean,
well, I'm not saying that.
It's
and
crazy.
Our opponents are not saying that. But
my opponents is what you call them opponents. I don't have opponents. Opponents need an enemy. I don't oppose them. So therefore, there's no opponent. They might think they are, but they're not.
On top of the reptile theory, shall we say, pardon for me saying this, you claim that the reality that we perceive is actually holographic.
Yeah, more and more scientists are saying that.
And it's being beamed to us from the rings of Saturn and pulled out moon, which actually is an alien or reptile portal or a base.
Soviet scientists were saying that in 1970 from the Soviet Academy of Sciences.
You're not joking.
No, I'm not joking. Reality, mate, look.
Is this then, our shared hallucination? Me talking to you, is this real?
It's, put it this way, 99, this is mainstream science or quantum physics, 99% of your body is empty space. Not that this thing, but it's not, it has no solidity whatsoever. Your body's made up of atoms, that's what we're told, right? Have you ever seen the inside of an atom? If you take the nucleus of an atom to be the size of a 10-cent piece, then the atom, by comparison, is the size of a cathedral. It's empty space.
How does that relate to my question?
It relates to the fact that in terms of physicality, you can't exist because there's no physicality. When you look at a hologram, even the simple ones that we buy in the shops, they seem to be three-dimensional, and the best of them seem as solid as you and me. we're now having people doing duets on stages, one from this reality and one holographic. And you can hardly see the difference, if at all, with the best of them. So therefore, if you're asking me, do you exist? Do I exist? Yes, we do, as consciousness. But do you exist as a physical body? I exist as a physical body. This room exists as a physicality. No, you know why? There is no physical. And you know who says that? Quantum physicists.
Why is it that all these theories always take so long to explain? People tell me who support these theories, watch this, I don't know, 3 episodes, 9 hours in total program, and it all will become clear. You give lectures of no less than 10 hours. Why so long?
Because if you're talking to me about the world that people perceive as real, then we can talk in sound bites and sentence here, sentence there, because there's no backstory that people have to know before what apparently sounds crazy makes logical sense, which is what happens over 10 hours and in the books. So it has to be explained, and the different dots. I mean, how can you talk about shape-shifting reptilians unless you go into the nature of the fact that there is no physical, it's holographic illusion? How can a solid physical body shapeshift into another solid physical body? They can't. So unless you explain the nature of reality, how can shapeshifting make sense to people? Because the immediate wave of the hand is, it can't happen. How can you have solid body changing to solid body? But that's not what's happening. So you see, in all these areas, there has to be a backstory. I know, let's talk about Saturn and the rings and what they are. Let's do it in 2 sentences, shall we? That makes sense to people. You know, we've got to be mature and we've got to be adult. And if people can't be bothered to, and they say, oh, what, I've got to listen for 10 hours, well, you're not interested then. You go and watch the television news and the game show and let people who really want to know actually listen.
But if these reptiles are as advanced as you are, they surely could take over the game just like that, without taking their time, millennia and millennia,
well, you see,
infiltrating all the years.
The thing is, you see, here you go again. You're coming from a perspective who's done no research into this, and there is an answer to that, but not in the time that you're going to give it. There'll be an answer to that on Saturday in Tallinn. But not in the space and the time that this program is prepared to give to it. So this is where you are, and this is the challenge of people like me. You know, when I'm talking in the alternative media, they give me time to explain. When I'm talking in the mainstream media, they don't, and you're talking in ways and one-liners. Oh, he believes in shape-shifting reptiles. What's the initial reaction from people to that? With no backstory?
Well,
he's crazy.
I would imagine lots of people are writing hate mail to my boss at the moment, for letting you on the air.
Why?
Because they think you're mad.
Really? Do you know something? Being called mad by an idiot is a compliment, so I take it very much.
Is there a special message? You have your largest event in this region in Tallinn this Saturday. Is there a specific message for the folks here?
For the folks everywhere. You are not your body. You are not your name. You are not your race. You are not your religion. You are not your life story. You are infinite awareness having those experiences. And what's happened to the universe is we've been manipulated to believe our experiences are who we are. Who we are is that consciousness which is having those experiences. The consciousness that stays conscious and expands in its consciousness when it leaves the body at what we call death, which is what's happening to people in a near-death experience. This is why their consciousness continues, because they are that consciousness. And it's just now coming from another perception, because it's left the focus of attention that the body creates, the hologram creates. So if we all realize, think about it, if we all realize that we're just consciousness, expressions of the same consciousness having different experiences, all the fault lines of divide and rule, of race, of religion, of all these different manufactured fault lines of divide and rule, they disappear. Why would an expression of consciousness want to go to war with an expression of that same consciousness if it realized that's what it was? If it thinks it's a Muslim, it's a Jew, it's a middle-class American, then these conflicts can happen, but not if you realize that it's all that is an illusion.
Your critics say that, yes, the world is a scary, at times a scary and a messed up place.
I don't find it a scary place.
You're taking advantage of people's fears.
Oh, really?
Profiting.
Why don't I have
Giving
why don't I
lectures.
have fear? Why don't I fear any of
Lots
this?
of
And
people
why
have
do I live?
These are unpleasant things.
Why do I
Wars, diseases.
All right. Oh yeah.
so forth.
Okay. Okay. What we'll do then is we'll go.
You're building
No.
these
No.
fears.
What we'll do is we'll turn on the television news and we'll watch babies being blown apart in Aleppo, right? And we're not dealing in fear, are we? We're not going to frighten people by having children blown away in Aleppo in a manufactured war. We're not going to have people dying of hunger in a world of plenty on the television news, are we? That's not going to frighten people. And of course, the television news makes no money out of doing that, does it? So it doesn't profit on creating fear. We need to face what's happening in the world so that we can do something about it, right? And if we leave it to the mainstream media, as has been done until recently, look where that got us. Eh?
Point being that bad things do happen, but not for the reason.
How do you know?
All the time.
How do you know? How do you know?
How
You don't. These are suppositions which you're giving to me as fact. You ask me to support what I'm saying. You support what you're saying. Right?
Well,
How do you know? How do you know that bad
perception
things
is-
don't happen because they're made to happen?
My personal perception is that, I don't know.
Now that's different. Your personal perception. That's not
Okay,
what you
my
said.
knowledge is, or from what I have learned through my 42 years of life, is that if there's a car accident and 3 people die, it's not a lizard conspiracy.
Did I say it was?
If there's a war, it's not necessarily some sort of conspiracy.
How do you know?
Well, I don't know, but over the millennia,
Let me just ask you this. I said earlier that a document was published in America in 2000 by the people that then became the key players in the Bush administration, people like Rumsfeld and Cheney and Wolfowitz and Dov Zakheim, the comptroller of the entire Pentagon, calling for a series of countries to be regime changed. It said in that document that to make this happen in any kind of speed, we need another Pearl Harbor, right? Okay, 1 year later, America had what Bush called the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century, and as a result of that, the countries on that list have been picked off, right? Now, do you not think that that's worth investigating? If so, why hasn't the mainstream media investigated it?
well, I believe it has.
No, it has not. You're talking to an expert here, mate, on that. I'm on this, all my waking hours, and I have been for 26 years. I know what they investigate and not start. Let me ask you another question. You accept, do you, that we were not told the truth about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right?
Sure. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That there was an invasion based on what was actually a lie, and the knowing lie, that invasion was catastrophic. Hold on, let me finish, then you can come in. Was a catastrophic lie and created catastrophic circumstances for Iraqis. As a result of that invasion, catastrophe has expanded across the Middle East. Okay?
Sure.
Who told us that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when they knew there weren't?
Well, British and British government did it.
Let me put it simpler for you. The very same people, not even the same agencies, the same people that told us the official story of 9/11. Now,
Okay.
as a mainstream journalist, you can have this journalistic schizophrenia that you can accept that you were lied to over a catastrophic invasion and all the consequences that have followed, but accept every last word of the official story of 9/11.
Hello and welcome to this videocast and podcast for subscribers to davidicke.com. Well, I've been asked by many people to say something about what's become known as Pizzagate. This has been, of course, all over the web for weeks, and it breaks down in two basic polarities. There's the mainstream media, sits back in amazement, that has trashed the whole thing, and every detail has been dismissed. Every possibility has been dismissed. That's what you expect, really. But on the other hand, you've got people who are convinced that every detail of the allegations about Pizzagate are true. And you have this, in my view, grotesque situation of gross hypocrisy, whereby anyone who questions that every last fact, or even the whole thing in its entirety, called Pizzagate, is to be questioned, is to be not accepted on face value. They are subjected to the most vile abuse and trolling as a result of having a different opinion to those that believe every last word and alleged fact. Now, I've been investigating and exposing the global paedophile ring of what you might call, not really, but it's what it's called, the elite of the world. And it is a global paedophile ring, not rings, in the end. The big one I'm talking about, the elite one. There are obviously aspects of it in different parts of the world, but in the end it is part of one global ring. And there's reasons for this. There's reasons for the obsession with paedophilia and child abuse, which I go into in the books, and may do a video cast about it soon. But let's focus on Pizzagate and what's going on with that, and its place in the greater context of this paedophile ring and what has been happening to children decade after decade. The reason, let me say first of all, that this abuse ring, which is also connected into the satanic child sacrifice rings, indeed at the top, or at the inner core, whichever analogy you want, the satanic sacrifice rings and the paedophile elite ring globally are actually aspects of the same thing. And the reason it's not come out is because both victims of it who've survived, many don't, and those who are seeking to expose it have been subjected to ridicule, abuse, dismissal, and all that goes with it. I mean, I'm a personification of that very response because of what abuse I've had over the years putting this information out. And it really is, like I say, hypocrisy and self-delusion on a mega shocking scale, that those who say they are trying to get information out about this paedophile ring in its various and indeed almost infinite forms should think that when people have another opinion from them or differ in certain facts and emphasis, that they should be subjected to abuse on the scale that we are seeing in relation to those questioning genuine people who do accept that there is a paedophile network, but have questioned aspects of Pizzagate, that they should be subjected to abuse, ridicule, and such extraordinary levels of hostility. Because what does that do? It silences people. And what does the abuse and ridicule and dismissal of those seeking to expose the paedophile networks, what does that do? It silences them. Now, if we are going to bring to the surface what is really happening to children worldwide on a staggering scale, then what we need first of all, and primarily, bottom line, is the free flow of information, the free flow of opinion, and the free flow of information. Now, we are not going to have that if all that happens when anyone questions even some details of someone else's view, i.e., let's talk about, in this case, Pizzagate, that they are going to be subjected to what they are being subjected to now. Because what that means is you're blocking the free flow of opinion and the free flow of information by intimidating people into silence, which is exactly how this whole paedophile network globally has been kept under wraps all this time. And you know, this may come as a shock to some of these abusers of those questioning Pizzagate. It's actually very good when people have a different opinion. It's actually very good when people challenge you and question you. You know why? Because it makes you question your certainty. It makes you question if every last fact that you claim to be fact is actually true. And what that means is if you have the humility to think that maybe we don't know it all, maybe not every assumption we've made is necessarily true, then you can look at those assumptions again. You can recheck the facts. You can recheck where this accepted piece of information, where did the original source come from? But no, people who question Pizzagate are in detail, not even necessarily in its entirety, they are subject to this extraordinary level of hostility. And what I would say to those people who are issuing forth the abuse, look at what you say about the suppression of information and the suppression of opinion by the mainstream media, and then find a frickin' mirror and ask yourself, well, am I actually behaving in the same way that I claim to oppose behaves? And the answer, if people are honest with themselves, over and over again, will be yes, it is. So let us not forget either, of course, that trolls and abusers of people in the way that I talked about also connected to a now massive and highly sophisticated military computerized system of systematic trolling and seeking to undermine those who are putting out information that people or those in the shadows don't want people to hear. But beyond that, we still have this very significant number of people who are not connected to the military, who act in the interests of the suppressors by abusing those who question anything they say. And I say that from the perspective of knowing for a long time, more than 20 years now, that these elite paedophile rings in the end ring exist, and that they connect into the child sacrificing satanic rings. Going back as far as 1998, I published this book, The Biggest Secret, which named people like the former Prime Minister of Britain, Edward Heath, as a paedophile and Satanist. And the passage in the book was read to him. He was still an MP, Member of Parliament at the time. Was read to him in the week of publication. What did he do? Nothing. Why? Because it was true. And it took nearly 20 years for a police investigation triggered by other sources, not mine, to start into the child abuse allegations against Edward Heath. Of course, now, as with all aspects of this child abuse, paedophilia revelation in Britain that came out after the revelations about the BBC entertainer and record-breaking paedophile Jimmy Savile, the investigation of Ted Heath is being attacked by aspects of the media, usual suspects, to try to kill that, as they did the same with killing investigations into Leon Britton, a Margaret Thatcher cabinet minister and Home Secretary, who I named in a later book, again while he was still alive. And in The Biggest Secret, someone else I named in 1998 was a guy called Lord Alistair McAlpine. He was the Svengali spinner and closest of close associates throughout her period as Prime Minister of Margaret Thatcher. He was named to me by enough people for me to take it seriously and name him in the book during the 1990s. And of course, after the Savile revelations, there was this scandal in Britain when it was alleged that Lord McAlpine was a paedophile. And he then goes around threatening libel actions and instigating one or two over people actually in the end didn't name him directly. And he got massive payouts from the BBC and independent television, who neither of which named him. Go figure. And I named him in the 1990s in The Biggest Secret. And I named him again on the internet after the revelations became public all that time later. And he never even contacted me. And it's interesting that he was the spinner of and Svengali of Margaret Thatcher. The revelations about the Westminster paedophile ring were based upon the period of the Thatcher government. Margaret Thatcher was a very close friend of Jimmy Savile, and Jimmy Savile was an inner circle bosom buddy of the British royal family, brought into that circle in the 1960s by Lord Mountbatten, member of the royal family, who was a known paedophile. So when you look at my background, I've been at it with exposing this ring and uncovering it for decades. But that doesn't mean that you can't question every fact of every allegation and maybe think there's not enough to go on here to be so definite. Not that there's nothing happening, no, but be careful you don't make 2 and 2 equal 4,250, because if we do, it takes one massive exposure that allegations of a pedophile ring or a satanic ring is provable nonsense, and it discredits everything else. That's why everyone involved in this has a duty to the abused children to make sure that every fact is checked, and every assumption is based on credible information and credible sources. Against the background, in terms of Pizzagate, that without question, if you've stood next to me in the last 20 odd years, there is a massive elite paedophile network operating out of Washington DC and out of the elite of the United States. And indeed, in the biggest secret, I expose Father George Bush as a notorious paedophile and abuser of children. And if you go onto my YouTube channel, you'll see posted recently a video where I'm talking about Father George Bush and all that background. And the last time I looked, as I speak, closing in on 350,000 people have watched that in a matter of 3 days or so. And then there's another book, Transformation of America by Cathy O'Brien. This came out in 1995, and I met Cathy O'Brien and her partner very soon after the book came out, and I spent a lot of time with her talking about her experiences. I met her daughter, Kelly, who was born into captivity, literally, because Cathy O'Brien was one of an extraordinary number of young people who are taking into mind control projects which connect into the paedophile rings, connect into the satanic rings, and are turned literally into sex slaves who are used and abused by the elite, and then can't remember what happened until they're deprogrammed, like Cathy's been. What happened, thus keeping the elite people safe from exposure. It's called trauma-based mind control, creating multiple personality disorder, known now as dissociative identity disorder. Talked about this, written about this at great length. And Kelly, Cathy's daughter, was born while Cathy was still in a government mind control project, a project known as Project Monarch, an elite part of a mind control operation in America that actually became public, called MK Ultra. And what Cathy describes in the book from her period in captivity, from a small child through into her 30s, was the unspeakable behavior of the Clinton family, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and the Bush family, in the form of Father George Bush, and people like Dick Cheney, and a stream of other people in that same period of the Reagan-Bush and Bush administrations. Unspeakable is a word that doesn't even begin to cut it. Not just child abuse sexually, but torture. The sexual and abuse and torture of young women and others. And these, by the way, are the people that gave the order to invade countries and bomb countries. Anyone think that they will have any empathy with the people on the other end of the bombs? Whether it's in Syria or Libya or Iraq? When you have such a deleted empathy, a capacity for empathy, that you will do that to kids. So what goes on behind the scenes is so fantastic, so horrible, so horrific, that so many people, and you've got to understand that, and understand why, find it difficult, who've not done the research, who've not spoken to the people involved, and I've spoken to legions of them, in terms of the victims. They find it impossible to bridge that gap between the world as they think it is and the world in the shadows, as it really is. And there was, of course, more confirmation of this in America with the revelations of a Nebraska state senator called John W. DeCamp, who wrote a book called The Franklin Cover-Up, which didn't set out to expose or uncover an elite paedophile ring connected to the Republican Party. It set out to investigate the corruption of something called the Franklin Credit Union in Nebraska, which was headed by a guy called Lawrence King, a big Republican who actually sang the national anthem at the Republican conventions in 1984 and 1988. And what DeCamp did, as he was uncovering the corruption for which Lawrence King was eventually jailed, he found that King was running an elite paedophile ring, supplying children to elite politicians in the Republican Party at conventions and what have you. Exactly the same theme and exactly the same story that you hear around the world in terms of political paedophiles in Britain and in Australia. I mean, does anyone really think that it's just a coincidence that people have come out in America, they've come out in Britain, they've come out in Australia and other countries talking about this, describing the same themes, the same abuse, the same elite networks, and it's all a coincidence and they're all just making it up? That's what the media want you to believe. And that's why I say to those investigating Pizzagate and passing on stuff about Pizzagate, just make sure that your assumptions are justified by the evidence, and that things you take for granted as being true have been taken back to their original source to see if they are, and to see what that source is, and is it credible. You know, what can happen is something gets on the internet and it's passed around, and suddenly where it actually originally came from is forgotten. It's taken for granted it's true, and it may be. What I'm saying is, take it back to where it came from, where it originated, every time, to see if that original source is credible, and credible enough to take it for granted that it must be true. Now, there are, without question, things that people should be questioning about this whole Pizzagate. This idea that there is a paedophile ring in Washington DC, there is. Okay, it's not a question of is there a paedophile ring in Washington DC. My God, there is. It involves some of the most famous people in Washington. The question is all the detail about Pizzagate supportable? Because we've got to be careful that these things are not put out there to discredit everything else. That's why we've got to be really, really focused and disciplined about sources and making sure that 2 and 2 that we think equals 4 actually equals another number. But there are things about Pizzagate. This idea that there are codes, for instance, of pizza and hot dog and other things that connect to a paedophile coded language where these things appear to say one thing but are actually talking about children. Now again, we need to go back to where those codes came from to see if they come from a credible source and they can be taken as read. But when you read these emails that come out through WikiLeaks on which Pizzagate is based, emails involving people like John Podesta, who was the chairman of Hillary Clinton's election campaign, and his brother Tony Podesta, a lobbyist in Washington. Some of them certainly appear to be written in code. The question is, what is the code and why? And I think it's extraordinary. Well, it's not really, when you know how it works. Why the mainstream media has not gone to these people and said, look, these emails where you're talking about pizzas and hot dogs, or others writing to you are talking about it. Why the obsession with pizzas and hot dogs? What does this actually mean? Can you just explain what this email was about, what was said? And if they come out with a credible explanation, well, fair enough, thank you. But if they don't, well, what's this code? And it's been said that the Podestas are creepy, and John Podesta, of course, not only served Hillary Clinton's election campaign, but was chief of staff to Bill Clinton when he was president, and was a very close advisor to Barack Obama. So this is a big wig in Washington. And people have said that the Podestas are creepy. Well, in my view, the Podestas are creepy. I mean, Tony Podesta seems to have a very strange taste in art. For instance, one of his favorite artists, he said, is someone, a Serbian artist, who paints pictures of semi-clad, semi-naked children looking very traumatized, and of children tied up floating dead in swimming pools. I mean, hello? Creepy, are you kidding? And that kind of reminds me of Lord McAlpine, who had a art collection of an artist called Graham Ovenden, whose speciality was painting naked little children and semi-naked little children. A Graham Ovenden who eventually was jailed for paedophilia. What are these people? What are these people doing with art? alleged. Like that, and saying how good it is. The other thing is, of course, in this Pizzagate whole story and the allegations, is an artist who talks about something called spirit cooking, which involves cooking. Nice recipe. Mix fresh breast milk with fresh sperm milk. Drink on earthquake nights. With a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand. Eat the pain. Fresh morning urine. She's taking a piss. Sprinkle over nightmare dreams, etc. And she's a friend of Tony Podesta. And, you know, the people that are making the decisions that dictate our lives are not like most of the population is. And we need to kind of understand that. There is the world that the population lives in, and then there's the world that they live in, which is very different, to say the least. Then we have this connection to Jeffrey Epstein, the jailed paedophile, very rich man, who has been a close friend and associate of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's had something like 26 times that he's been on Epstein's plane, which is known as the Lolita Express because of its connection to pedophilia. Epstein is a friend of Hillary Clinton. He's a friend of, or certainly was, of people like Donald Trump, the president-elect, of Prince Andrew, and many others that would be called elite. And then you look in Britain, when we're putting together all these pieces of information, which, when you put them together, create a situation where these elite paedophile rings, ring in the end, are actually in plain sight. But you need to take these apparently different pieces of information and situations and put them together, and then suddenly the pixels become a picture. So let's go to Jimmy Savile, if we must, the BBC quote entertainer, who after his death in 2011 was exposed as a record-breaking paedophile. What's not come out is that he was a procurer of children for the rich and famous, and that's why he managed to be a record-breaking paedophile decade after decade after decade, while being an inner circle bosom buddy of the British royal family and a close associate and friend of Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister, without getting caught, charged, put away with the key thrown mid-Atlantic. That's why he got away with it. And let's just analyze this and how these rings infiltrate every aspect of society. You cannot cough out of tune near the British royal family without the British intelligence network knowing about it. Just talk to people about the the background checks that go on for people that are going to have anything to do with the Queen or other members of the royal family, for instance. And yet, it's known that the police knew about Jimmy Savile's activities, paedophile activities, and he was into Satanism as well, because like I say, they're connected. I did nothing. So, we're asked to believe that British intelligence, one of whom's jobs and special branch, basically the intelligence arm of the police, didn't know that this inner circle confidant of people like Prince Charles and the royal family, Prince Philip, that British intelligence did not know what Savile was up to decade after decade after decade, when the scale was stunning. Of course they bloody knew. Or we're being asked to believe that the FBI and the CIA didn't know what Father George Bush and Cheney and Clintons and both Clintons have been up to decade after decade after decade. Of course they knew. Of course they know. So why don't they do anything? Because the ring infiltrates all aspects of society, needed to do what they do and to cover up what they do. And it's so sad as well as sickening to see the way the media, particularly the usual suspects in the media, seek to trash and discredit any of these various aspects, whether it's in this country or that country. These various expressions of this paedophile ring being exposed, and thus being exposed with it, the true nature of those that run our world. At the moment in Britain, we have the papers full of allegations by former young footballers of being sexually abused by coaches. And the papers are full of it. They're outraged that this could have been done to young footballers by football coaches. And they're right to be outraged. It's appalling. But you see, exposing football coaches for the sexual abuse of young footballers is not going to bring the system down. It doesn't threaten the system at all. It might threaten the system of football. But don't threaten the system that dictates human society and the direction that it goes. But if the truth came out of the scale of child abuse, child torture, child sacrifice, Satanism, involving some of the most famous political leaders, politicians, and connected people, that came out, the system would fall. Because people en masse would see the force that's really controlling their lives, and how it has an obsession with children, for reasons I explain in the books. There's no background needed before that can be adequately explained. And so only in the last few days, we've had the police investigation into allegations about Edward Heath being trashed by the Mail on Sunday and the Daily Mail. Did I say usual suspects? We've had the investigations into the Thatcher cabinet minister Leon Britton being trashed by significant parts of the media. And of course, the government investigation, so-called inquiry, into the allegations of a Westminster paedophile ring, a la same as the Washington paedophile ring, being systematically trashed. The present Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, was Home Secretary when the pressure from the scale of revelations forced the government into announcing an inquiry into this political paedophilia in Britain and other things as well relating to child abuse. And one of the people at the centre of this was Leon Britton, in terms of appearing before the inquiry to answer questions, not least at how a dossier of elite child abuse given to him by a Conservative MP called Geoffrey Dickens suddenly disappeared and was not acted upon. And so Theresa May, either she's completely and utterly, fundamentally, shockingly idiotic and incompetent, or announces that the head of this inquiry is going to be someone called Baroness Butler-Sloss, who just happens to be the sister of one of the people, a guy called Lord Havers, Attorney General at the time that Leon Britton was Home Secretary, who was connected into this whole series of paedophile allegations and what happened to the dossier. So obviously, when this is exposed, Butler-Sloss has to stand down. Then she announces that someone called Fiona Woolf is going to take over. Okay, Fiona Woolf just happens to be a friend of Leon Britton's wife, has had dinner with Leon Britton, and lived in the same street. When that is revealed, she has to stand down. Then Theresa May goes to the other side of the world to a judge in New Zealand called Dame Lowell Goddard, who very quickly revealed and actually confirmed more since her resignation to be absolutely not up to the job. So there's three gone. What's happened? Time is put between the revelations that were kind of, or the claims that were everywhere, and now just easing out the time, letting it go quiet, letting the public forget about it. And another thing is that with all these delays caused by what I've just described, these delays delayed the appearance of Leon Britton before the inquiry to answer questions. Leon Britton then died, it is said, of cancer after a long illness. After a long illness. So they knew, if you go with the official story, that Leon Britton had cancer and was dying of cancer. If you really wanted to find out about the background to what has gone on, what would you do? You'd get him in front of an official body as quickly as possible to get on the record his replies to these allegations and questions. No. Because of the delay, he died. And we'll never hear him answer for what he is said to have done, not least about the dossier. So, when you, and I mean I could talk for hours, I won't, but I could. When you put all these things together, like I say, it's in plain sight. And if you look at Pizzagate in terms of its theme, rather than the fine detail of this pizza operation or this or that, if you look at it only in terms of theme, then of course, when you put the dots together, it's based on something that is actually happening on a staggering scale. But I would just say to those that are focusing on this and investigating this, and good luck to them, I say, just make sure that you don't get carried away to the point that you're making assumptions on detail that can be discredited, and thus, by association, discredit the whole idea that there's a paedophile ring at all. Go back to original sources. Check, recheck, check again. And if then it all adds up, then well done you. Because the more people that investigate this whole arena, the better. But it's got to be investigated in a professional way, and not just because something's been passed to you on Facebook to accept that it's true by definition. And I would say again, to those who issue forth this extraordinary, shocking level of abuse at those that are questioning some of the detail, even all of the assumptions of Pizzagate, you're just doing what that which you are opposing wants you to do by intimidating people into silence just because they have a different opinion to you. It's a society of free thought, free expression, free opinion that we're trying to build, isn't it? In the face of that which seeks to oppress and suppress all of that. And so we need to be at peace with people having a different opinion. Because if we're not at peace with that, we're not at peace with freedom. And in the end, if the free flow of information is allowed to prevail, the truth will, indeed must, come out. So whether every aspect, assumption and detail of Pizzagate is true or not true, it changes not one thing in relation to this. There is a global network of empathy deleted, psychopathic pedophiles and Satanists that are obsessed with children for reasons I can explain at length. And they are the people running our world. And thus, whether Pizzagate is true or not true, that remains true. And we need to face it and not allow our incredulity that they wouldn't do that to stop us realizing what's really happening and what's really happening to children now as I speak, all over the world, today and every day.